What's up everyone, my name's PlatinumHowler, coach of your Delta Gliders. Today I am finally bringing you the beginning of our NCL Substrika Division Showdown series. This is Season 7 of the league. Season 6 we participated in the Blitzel Division as a new player to the league, emerged as the league champions, and proceeded to be promoted to the Substrika Division for Season 7. I have to be honest with you guys. The main reason why this series has been delayed more than I would have liked it to be is this video in particular has been kind of a source of anxiety for me. I want to make this series and to gear it towards new players and helping them learn the format and get into it and, you know, kind of just improve as a player, as a Draft League player overall. But draft analysis, as far as draft analysis go, this is really the one chance that I have. It's the only chance that I have to show off what it means to be a good drafter in Draft League format. Because there are three elements to being a good Draft League player. You got to be a good drafter, a good team builder, a good battler. I have plenty of opportunities to show you the team builder and battling part, but this is the one shot I have at showing you what it means or to be a good drafter, all the things that you got to put into it, things you got to think about. So yeah, that's why I've kind of been a little nervous about getting started, because I've got one chance to nail it, really. So I'm hoping that I'm hoping that I can nail it with this finally while trying this out. So the NCL is a pretty standard tiered draft. Usually the tiering that you will see for draft leagues, you'll have 5 tiers that each have their own point value. Tier 1 Pokemon would be the strongest Pokemon that you have to choose from. Those usually cost you about 180 points. Then there's Tier 2 Pokemon that usually cost you 120. Tier 3 that are worth 100. And Tier 4 is worth 60, Tier 5 is worth 40. So usually how they make you do it is you have to pick a Pokemon from Tier 1, you have to pick one from Tier 2, you have to pick 2 from Tier 3, 1 from Tier 4, and 1 from Tier 5. So that's 6 Pokemon to start off your draft. And then in this league you can also draft a Mega Pokemon. So you're usually forced to draft one of those, and some megas are more viable than others. They're a lot stronger, so you get extra free points to use if you draft one of the less viable megas as opposed to one of the stronger megas. So if you draft something like Mega Ampharos, you'll probably get 60 extra free points to work with for the last 4 months of your draft. But if you draft the Mega Pokemon that I did, then you probably won't be getting any extra free points. So I'm mentioning free points. Usually you'll get 400 free points to pick the last 4 mons on your team. So like I mentioned, the Tier 1 to 3, 4, 5, they each have their own point value. So in my case, I took a Tier 1, a Tier 3, and 2 Tier 4s. So that's 180 plus 100 plus 60 plus 60, that totals 400 free points, so I used up all of the points that I had available to me for my draft. Before we get into the mons that I drafted, I really want to emphasize that this series is going to, feedback and comments on these types of videos are going to be more important than ever. I want to hear feedback from the viewers to make sure that I am being as informative as possible. And if there are any questions that you do have that you want me to answer, maybe some things that I didn't explain clearly enough, then please leave questions down in the comments below, and I will definitely be responding to them. So very quickly, or relatively quickly, I'm going to go over the mons that I drafted for my NCL team this season. I'm going to explain why I drafted them. And also along the way, I'm going to try to give some just drafting tips in general. Typically how drafts go is you're going to see the higher tier Pokemon go off the board first, and the reason for that is because those higher tier Pokemon are generally the Pokemon that you're going to be bringing to the majority of your games. Just simply because they are the best Pokemon, and they usually are going to have the best matchups depending on the kinds of teams that you're going up against. So you're going to be bringing them a lot. So you want to make sure that the picks that you take early are mons that you know you can use and can help you form a good cohesive team with. Also, I will say going into this draft, because there are certain mons that are available in this draft that you cannot get in Sword and Shield Wi-Fi leagues at the moment, just because not every Pokemon is coded into the into the game at the moment, but we can use them all on Pokemon Showdown, so that's pretty cool. I definitely wanted to focus on drafting some Pokemon that I currently would not be able to use in Wi-Fi, but I can use them in Showdown, of course. So I had the 14th pick of the draft, so I had to wait for 13 people before me to take their first Pokemon before I had the opportunity to take my first Pokemon, and I am shocked at the fact that this Pokemon lasted so long in the draft, because this is something that is usually banned in most standard draft leagues, but it is allowed this season in the NCL. I was super excited to get the opportunity to draft Ash-Greninja. Initially, I was thinking that I would either take Ash-Greninja first, or I would try to draft the combination of Tapu Lele and Cinderace. Those were two mons that were still left. But if I couldn't get both of them, because there's still two more people behind me in the draft that get to pick two Pokemon of their own before I get to pick my second one. So there are 16 coaches in the league total. I was picking 14th. I felt like if I couldn't get both of them, that I would have wanted to go in a different direction for my draft. So I didn't want to risk not being able to get both. So I feel like just going after Ash-Greninja right away was the best overall move. Plus, going after both Tapu Lele and Cinderace, them both being tier 1 Pokemon, because Cinderace is allowed to run Libero in this league. Taking two tier 1 Pokemon right off the bat would have put a huge dent in my budget and really constricted the way I would have been able to build my team later on in the rounds. I would have had to take I would have had less options, basically, with less free points available for me to use. Greninja as a first pick just checks a lot of boxes right off the bat. It's a really fast Pokemon at base 122 speed, I want to say. And because it's Ash-Greninja, how it works is its ability Battle Bond transforms it from regular Greninja into Ash-Greninja once it picks up a kill on your opponent's team. And what that's going to do is it's going to give Greninja an extra 10 points in speed to make it even faster and outspeed even more things on your opponent's team. And it's going to give it an extra 50 base points in attack and special attack, which is crazy. It can be a super fast and extremely threatening mixed attacker if it gets its Battle Bond active. And it puts your opponents in position where it's just it pressures your opponents to constantly want to switch out and weaken so many things on your team, because you don't want to give Greninja a kill and let itself get its Battle Bond up. Greninja is a water and dark type Pokemon. The dark typing is a very important typing to get, especially to get early on in the draft, because psychic types can be a massive problem for a lot of teams if you don't have a good dark type to take them on. So yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you draft a dark type to your team. That's one of the most essential types to grab during your draft, whether it be a high tier dark type like Greninja or a lower tier dark type like Skuntank, for example. You still want to make sure that you have a dark type on your team so psychics don't just run through you. It's also really valuable to get that super high speed stat right off the bat. Speed is really important to have on your team just to make sure that you can get attacks off before your opponent's Pokemon can get attacks off. That is all for Greninja. So that was my 14th pick, and then the two people behind me in the draft. How drafts work is that it goes in a snake format. So the person who picks number 1 gets to go, and then everybody below them gets to go. So I pick 14, then the next person below me takes 15, and the 16th person gets to pick 2 Pokemon at the same time, and then it goes in reverse order. So it goes all the way from 16 back up to the person who picked number 1. They pick 2 Pokemon, and then it keeps going like this. So I got to pick relatively soon. Again, I had the 14th overall pick, and I also get the 19th overall pick. And something that I want to grab early is something that can take advantage of really bulky water types. That is something that Greninja is most of the time not going to be able to handle on its own. And bulky water types are very, very common to be taken in draft leagues just because they can take hits from a variety of different threats. That's why I picked Thundurus-Incarnate form. There are 2 forms of Thundurus, Therian form and Incarnate form. I got the Incarnate form because it's actually in tier 2 as opposed to tier 1, which would probably surprise a lot of draft league veterans. Typically Thundurus, both forms of Thundurus have been tier 1 picks in the past, but NCL voted Thundurus-I down into tier 2, so as soon as I saw that, I knew that it was a Pokemon that I would be looking to grab because I think it's very strong and it works as a very good value pick for my team. When I say value pick, I mean it's probably one of the best Pokemon available in its tier. I have to pick Pokemon from every tier, so if I can get the best Pokemon from those tiers, then I think that is going to help out our team a lot more. So Thundurus being a part electric type means that it's going to be hitting those bulky water types that Greninja doesn't like for a lot of damage. Water types only have 2 weaknesses in electric and grass, so we get the electric type out of the way early on. And also Thundurus-I is another very fast Pokemon with base 111 speed, a few points lower than Greninja at base 122. So we have good speed tiers right off the bat. So speed tiers, you want to make sure that you have a good mix of speed stats on your team, because otherwise your opponents can... speed tiers are kind of hard to explain. So you want to have a good mix of speed stats, because if all of your Pokemon on your team have the exact same speed stat, like you have 7 Pokemon that all have a base speed stat of 100, then a lot of Pokemon on your opponent's team are not going to even bother running investment in speed. A lot of things that are slower than base 100, they're just going to make sure that they EV their Pokemon to have as much bulk as possible, because there's no chance I'm going to be outspeeding all of these base 100 Pokemon. On the other hand, if your opponent has something that is incredibly fast, like has a base speed stat of 130, then they can forego a little bit of the speed investment that they might need to make sure that they outspeed my Greninja at 122, for example. Well, if that 130 Pokemon only has to outspeed Pokemon with base 100 speed stat, then that allows them to EV themselves to hit even harder with a more powerful attack stat, and then that's just going to cause you problems and make it harder for your team to take hits from that Pokemon. So speed tiers, if you have questions about that, make sure to leave comments below. It's kind of a difficult thing to explain, but good I could get that out of the way right now. So after I took Thundurus, the draft goes all the way back up to number 1 and then all the way back down to me. So I had to wait for 26 more picks before it was my turn to pick again. And at this point, I had kind of decided which Mega Pokemon I was going to take for the team. But I wasn't going to take it in this round. I was planning to take it on the next round for my 4th pick. Greninja and Thundurus are both primarily special attackers. You see Pokemon with a physical attack stat and a special attack stat. You want to make sure that you have a good mix of both predominantly physical and predominantly special attackers. Otherwise, then your opponents can just bring, like if you have a team of all special attackers, then your opponents can just bring Pokemon with all that are like completely trained in special defense to take hits better from that. So you want to make sure you have a good combination of physical and special. So I know that the Mega that I am planning to take is also a special attacker. So I want to make sure that I get a physical attacker right now to make sure that I have a good balance of physical and special. So I see Haxorus sitting in tier 3, which has a monstrous physical attack stat of base 147. So that's the Pokemon that I'm going to grab next. Again, it gives us good speed tiers with to pair with the Greninja and Thundurus because it's sitting at a couple points below the Thundurus at base 97 speed. Dragon typing is a really, really nice type to have because it has a lot of resistances to opposing types and not very many opposing types that resist dragon type moves. It's only steel types that resist dragon, and then also fairy types that are immune to dragon. So outside of facing those two types, dragon is a very, very strong offensive typing and can just hit the majority of Pokemon for a lot of damage, especially coming off a base attack stat of 147. Just to put in perspective how much base 147 attack is, that is the 3rd highest attack stat in the entire game for all Pokemon that are not Mega Pokemon. Haxorus is really freaking strong. So now we'll move on to the Mega Pokemon that I took with my next pick, and that was Mega Venusaur. And I said I was going to wait on Mega Venusaur for this pick, mainly because I know that the 2 people picking behind me are not going to take Mega Venusaur. One of the people behind me had already drafted a grass type, so they're very, very unlikely to draft Mega Venusaur as their mega pick because they already drafted Tangrowth, which is another very defensive grass type. So, you know, taking 2 defensive grass types to the same team doesn't make a lot of sense. And the other person had already picked their Mega Pokemon, so they cannot pick Mega Venusaur at all. You can't pick more than 1 Mega Pokemon to a team. 13 people that are above me in the draft, however, that's a lot less predictable of what they're going to take, so I wanted to make sure that I could get it before any of them had the opportunity to get it. I wasn't worried about the 2 people below me. I think generally speaking, Mega Venusaur is just one of the best Mega Pokemon that you can get for a Draft League team because it is very, very hard to take down. It has very high defenses, base like 120 defenses on both the physical and special side, approximately. That's not exact. So, and it only has 2 weaknesses as well because its ability Thick Fat means that it takes instead of taking super effective damage from fire and ice type moves, it's now only going to take neutral damage. So it effectively, in its mega form, only has 2 weaknesses, and that's to Psychic and Flying. And as I mentioned, Psychic, very threatening type. We already have a very good Dark type on our team to be able to handle those Psychic types. And we also already have Thundurus-Incarnate, which is part Electric type and resists Flying type moves. So I think Mega Venusaur already fits really well in this team. It's not something that I had planned to get right out of the start, right from the beginning of the draft. But honestly, the best draft strategy a lot of the time is to just react to what you still see on the board and not like plan out everything that you want to take right away, because if somebody else takes what you were planning on getting before you had a chance to get it, in other words, they snipe you on a pick, then that can you know, ruin a lot of plans that you might have had. So it's best to kind of just adapt round by round, and once you get on to the later portion of the draft, when you've already constructed the majority of your team, then it makes more sense to kind of plan out what you're going to get, because there are usually more substitutes, things that you can get in the lower tiers to replace a mon that maybe you wanted but you couldn't get it because somebody else already took it. It's also worth mentioning that in the NCL, you do not have to Mega Evolve your Mega Pokemon on the first turn that it is in battle. Now, this is a very common rule that needs to be outlined in the rules of your draft leagues, whether Mega Pokemon are forced to click the Mega Evolve button on the first turn that they are on the field. So a lot of leagues usually will force you to first turn Mega, but NCL does not, and it's very important to note that there are some Mega Pokemon that are more viable if you are able to, if you're allowed to Mega them whenever you want, as opposed to Megaing them on the first turn that they're in. Obviously, Mega Sharpedo is probably the best example of that. I'm not going to get too into the Pokemon that benefit from that the most, but it's important to know the rules for Mega Pokemon in the league that you're drafting for, because, you know, certain Pokemon are better if they don't have to make a first turn. Venusaur is not one of those Pokemon. Really, the only time you would consider not Mega Evolving Venusaur on the first turn that it's on the field is if you're running a Sun team, because its hidden ability Chlorophyll makes it twice as fast as it usually would be in while Sun is active on the field. But I didn't draft a Sun team, so I'm pretty much going to be Mega Evolving Venusaur on the first turn every single chance I get. Now for my next pick, I have some pretty good offensive weapons with my first 3 picks, and now I'm looking to build more of a defensive core with Mega Venusaur. As I said, it's 2 weaknesses to Psychic and Flying. You know, you want to make sure that you draft Pokemon that can resist your other Pokemon's weaknesses. So Steel types resist both of those, and I think Bronzong is a really, really good partner for Mega Venusaur, and that's what I grabbed with my next pick. Bronzong is part Psychic and Steel, so it's going to resist Psychic type moves. Actually, it's going to take, it's going to quad resist Psychic type moves, which, you know, it's taking 4 times as less damage from those attacks as it usually would, and it also resists Flying type moves. So those 2 Pokemon can pretty much take any hits that you want them to. Now, Bronzong is a tier 4 Pokemon, and you may be wondering, why am I taking tier 4 Pokemon before, while I still have the ability to afford very strong tier 1 and tier 2 Pokemon? Well, like I said, you have to draft Pokemon from every tier, and Bronzong is a Pokemon that is often highly coveted in draft leagues, especially as a tier 4 pick. It's a pretty good value pick, I would say. I wanted to make sure that I could get it early and you know, make sure that I get a good, solid defensive partner to go with my Mega Venusaur that I already had. There are still going to be tier 1 Pokemon left on the board in the later rounds once I get done picking up my my solid lower tier picks. Like, I don't have to grab, like, I don't have to take my picks in order. I can take, I don't have to take all my tier 1s at once, all my tier 2s at once. You can, there's more flexibility with how you draft than that. Another reason why I think Bronzong works really well with Mega Venusaur, ground type moves are very, very strong and spammable against a lot of Pokemon. And one of the types that resists ground type moves is grass. However, my Mega Venusaur does not resist ground because it is also part poison, and poison is weak to ground. So the fact that I can get a steel type with the ability Levitate, making it immune to ground type moves, is really, really, really nice. Bronzong also gives me my first hazard setter. It can set stealth rocks on the opposing side of the field, and it's important to have a variety of hazard setting options on your team. Hazards are going to be dealing damage to your opponent's Pokemon just for switching into the field. So it's important to be able to punish your opponents for just constantly switching. If you have hazards up on their side, then they're going to be just constantly taking damage. And you also want to make sure that you have Pokemon on your team that can get rid of hazards on your side that your opponent wants to set, so that your team doesn't get constantly worn down by said hazards. And that's why with my next pick I decided to take Donphan, because it can learn a move called Rapid Spin that clears all entry hazards set on my side of the field. Not only that, but it, just like Bronzong, has the ability to set Stealth Rocks on my opponent's side. So this is just a good overall utility mon to have on my side. Also very physically defensive. It can switch into some physical attackers and absorb some hits. Buy it time to be able to get up Stealth Rocks and spin Stealth Rocks away and such. Ground types, very valuable to have because ground types are immune to electric types. You want to make sure that you have immunities to electric on your team. Otherwise, the move Volt Switch is very, very threatening because it threatens big damage, and it gives your opponent a free switch into a different Pokemon on your team that has a better matchup against what's currently on the field. So Volt Switch, definitely something you need to be worried about, and making sure that you grab good resistances and immunities to electric on your team. So ground type's really good for that. Now Donphan is another tier 3 Pokemon. It's the second of my required 2 tier 3 picks. So 6 picks into the draft out of 11 picks. 11 is a very standard amount of Pokemon to pick up in a draft. So we have 5 more Pokemon to draft, and we still have not used any of our free points. And I can, looking at the board, afford another tier 1 Pokemon. So that's what I'm going to grab with my 7th pick, and that's going to be Victini. Victini is a really solid all-around Pokemon, having very well-rounded stats. It has base 100 stat in every single stat: HP, attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and speed. Base 100 in all of them, and that's really, really good. It was still available. I hadn't used it before. I hadn't drafted it before, so and plus it's also one of my friend Ruppy's favorite Pokemon to draft. He's drafted it so many times. So I wanted to finally give it a shot and see if I could use it as well as he can. And what this gives me is another pivoting option. When I say pivoting, I mean a Pokemon that can use a move that gives them a switch into another Pokemon on my team. So Victini can use U-Turn, which is going to deal damage to the opponent and switch it out right away into another Pokemon of your choice. We have Greninja that can also use U-Turn. We have Thundurus that can use U-Turn and Volt Switch. So with those 3 Pokemon, we have a really threatening offensive trio that can all pivot into various members on my team. The one weakness, the biggest weakness that I see about those 3 Pokemon though, are that 2 of them are weak to rocks. So if my opponent manages to get Stealth Rocks up on my side of the field, every time my Victini or Thundurus switch in, they're going to be losing a quarter of their health, which is quite a lot. It means that they can't just switch in as freely as they would like over the course of the game. So that's where the item Heavy Duty Boots is going to come in for me. Heavy Duty Boots, if you're running that item on your Pokemon, means that they won't be affected by any entry hazards that are on my side. So the fact that that item exists now could very well help out this team in particular. If you don't know, Victini has one of the most powerful attacks in the game called V-Create. It's a base 180 physical attacking fire move that just does a ton of damage to anything on your team. Victini gets a variety of really strong moves, so that's why it is in tier 1. So this next pick I really took because I wanted to make Owen in my front office happy. He's always piping in there saying, draft ground resists, not just ground immunities, ground resists, you need ground resists. That's basically all he ever types in my front office chat is draft ground resists, you dummy. But yes, it is important that we do draft not just immunities to ground, but also resistances to ground. So basically, either a grass or a bug type. Those are the only two types that resist ground and that are like not immune to ground. They resist ground. And my grass type, as I mentioned already, it does not resist ground. So I want to make sure that I get a bug type that can take ground hits. It's important to have ground resistances because there are Pokemon, very strong Pokemon such as Moldbreaker Excadrill and 1000 Arrows Zygarde that can hit with very strong ground type moves that ignore your immunities. So having resistances for those Pokemon is very key. So in this slot we drafted Golisopod, which is a tier 4 Pokemon. That's going to come out of our free points. So we only have 160 free points left for our last 2 free picks. You can switch into a lot of ground type moves and other type moves as well. It has a nice docket of resistances. It gets an ability called Emergency Exit, which is often more of a detriment to it than it is a positive, because once its HP drops below 50%, it is forced to switch out. So it is possible to use that to your advantage, but sometimes, a lot of the time, it can also work to your disadvantage. So if it didn't have this ability, it would probably be tiered much higher than it is. Golisopod is another Pokemon on my team that can set hazards on the opponent's side of the field. It gets access to spikes, which is a different kind of hazard, and you can set multiple layers of spikes. You can set up to 3 layers of spikes on the opponent's side. So I have 4 different Pokemon on my team that can set hazards. I haven't gotten to the 4th yet, but I will very soon. Now, this is something that I mentioned earlier. Once you get down to the lower tiers and the last couple mons on your team that you're going to draft, it'll often work out that there are better substitutes for Pokemon than there are in the higher tiers. So if you're thinking about drafting a Pokemon of a certain type, like for example, my next pick is going to be a Ghost type Pokemon. There are 2 ghost types in tier 3 that I wouldn't mind taking. Those 2 were Poltegeist and Mimikyu. So I can wait on taking one of those 2 Pokemon because if one of them gets taken by someone else, then I'm fine with that. There's still probably the second one is probably still going to be there, and I'm fine with taking that one instead. So that's why I made sure I grabbed Golisopod before I grabbed the tier 3 ghost type, because I had more options. So as it turns out, Poltegeist was taken by another coach, so that made my choice to go with Mimikyu a lot easier. Mimikyu is really nice to have on a team because of its disguise ability. It can soak up any one hit. It doesn't take any damage from the first attack that it's hit with, and you can always you can basically guarantee get an attack off with this Pokemon. Then it also has a priority move in Shadow Sneak that always moves first. That's something else that you want to make sure that you have some of on your team is priority to pick off Pokemon that are really low on HP. So I have quite a few Pokemon on this team that can use priority moves. I think I have Greninja gets Water Shuriken, that's a priority move. Haxorus gets First Impression. Golisopod also gets First Impression. Donphan, Ice Shard. Mimikyu Shadow Sneak, and then my last pick of the draft also gets a priority move. So half of the Pokemon on my team have access to priority moves that always move first and can pick off weakened Pokemon on the opposing team. The 10th pick is going to be my tier 5 pick. This was something that I had planned to take very early on in the draft, and it's actually something that I have drafted before, and that's going to be Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is the 4th hazard setter that I previously mentioned. It can set Stealth Rocks. I'm not really sure why. It doesn't make a logical sense for why it can set Stealth Rocks, but I'm glad that it can. When you get down to the lower tiers, these Pokemon aren't typically going to be brought very much to games. You're gonna be bringing your higher tier Pokemon the majority of the time, or at least you want to. So one thing that is very nice to pick up from your lower tier Pokemon is lots of utility. Things such as Wish Passing. I can use Wigglytuff's insane base 140 HP stat to pass wishes into my other team members, specifically something like Bronzong that doesn't get reliable recovery for itself. When I say reliable recovery, I mean moves that can heal yourself for HP. So for example, Venusaur gets Synthesis, which will heal 50% of its HP when it's used. Besides Wigglytuff and its wishes, that's the only Pokemon on my team that can heal its HP, reliably at least. Lots of Pokemon can use the move Rest, which will bring it back up to full HP, but it will also put it asleep for 2 turns. So that is not considered reliable recovery. So if I can use Wigglytuff to click Wish and then bring in my Bronzong, my Bronzong is going to be healed for a significant amount of HP. It's probably going to be healed for about 65% of its HP, just because Wigglytuff's HP stat is much, much higher than Bronzong's HP stat. Another piece of utility that Wigglytuff can use is Heal Bell. Heal Bell will cure all statuses on my team. So if my Greninja is paralyzed, for example, that's something that I really don't want to happen, because Greninja is really good at being a fast attacker, and if it's paralyzed, then it's not fast anymore. So if I have my Wigglytuff that can cure Greninja's status, that's another good piece of utility that I have available to me. Finally, for my last pick of the draft, I have to take I don't have to take a tier 4 Pokemon for my last free pick. I could theoretically pick a tier 5 Pokemon and just not use up all of my free points, but I do have enough free points to take either a tier 4 or a tier 5 left. And the reason why I left this pick for last, there are a lot of fighting types in tier 4 that have the ability to remove hazards. Currently, my only 2 Pokemon that can remove hazards on my side are Thundurus, which gets Defog. Defog clears all hazards from both sides of the field, and then my Donphan with Rapid Spin that gets rid of hazards on my side, but not the other side, which is good. So for my last pick, I grabbed Girder, which is a fighting type. It's a type that I didn't already have on my draft, and it has the ability to defog hazards away. I wanted to make sure that with my last pick, I picked up an extra Pokemon that could remove hazards, because, as I mentioned, the Thundurus-Victini combination, my powerful offensive trio, doesn't really like coming in on Stealth Rocks, so I wanted to make sure that I had more options to get rid of said Stealth Rocks on my side of the field than I already had. That pretty much covers it. That's why I drafted the team that I did. As I mentioned before, comments are going to be key for this series. If you have any questions as to why I did certain things, if there's some things that I didn't cover as much as you would have liked, make sure to comment down below and like this video. Subscribe to the channel to keep up with all of our Draft League content, not just our NCL content. We are in leagues such as the BBR and IBL as well. IBL is going to be starting up again real soon. So yeah, subscribe for that. Look forward to the battle videos that will be coming out once a week. So this is going to go up either Tuesday or Wednesday, and then I will get up the week 1 battle video the following day. So and then every week after that I'll have one battle video for NCL that goes up. So yeah, if you're looking forward to this series, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff, and we'll see you in the next NCL video.